This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast. I am Chris Graham. I'm joined by Scott German, and Virginia 59, Miami 50. And the first takeaway from this game, Virginia fans listening to this, we get an 8-day break as the number one team in the country. Now, impressive win for the Cavs. Scott, we talked about this at halftime. We talked about it after the game before we came on the air here. Not exactly the prettiest basketball game of all time, but a very typical Virginia game. The Cavs win by 9 on the road against a tough Miami team. And, it looked a lot like what we've seen from Virginia an awful lot this year. Good offense, better defense. Virginia gets the win.
Yeah, I think I called it, this was more Virginia-like. I'm looking at the box right now, and the field goal shooting is more back in line with what we've been used to. I mean, we're shot 17 threes tonight, as opposed to 31 regular field goals, whatever you want to call them, twos. Possessions were fine. Turnovers were pretty much equal. Points off turnovers were equal. We played a good team. That the ESPN commentator alluded to it. Miami's projected to be a 6th seed in the NCAA tournament. They're well coached. We were coming off of just an absolutely agonizing, heartbreaking, you name it, adjective type of loss Saturday, and no sooner than 48 hours later had to get on a plane and head to enemy territory. I thought we played well. Withstood a second half comeback by Miami, and I'm very satisfied. And got the next 8 days off, and we're going to enjoy every single second of every single minute of every single day. As the number one team in the nation, there's nothing anyone can do about it.
That's right. Virginia fans, especially those who live in Virginia, enjoy this weekend. It's going to be a nice weather weekend. Go to a craft brewery. Go to a winery, whatever you got to do, because there's no basketball this weekend. It's weird, it's a weekend without ACC basketball, without UVA basketball. But you know what? You're number one in the country, and your team played well tonight. You look at the stats. Now, Virginia, as Scott mentioned, there was a second-half comeback by Miami. A couple times cut the lead to 4. Virginia led by 11 at the half. And Miami in the first half just 6 of 28 from the floor. Now, Miami in the second half shot 63.2%, did have 7 turnovers, but even in shooting 63.2% from the floor, only gained 2 points on Virginia. As Virginia gets, really in control of this whole game. Scott, I will say this. I felt like after the first couple of possessions of this game, sometimes you get a feel for a game early in the ball game. Miami had a couple of really rough offensive possessions. And I just felt after those offensive possessions, this was going to be Virginia's night. The only guy on Miami that really had any kind of a night at all, career high Chris Likes, 19 points, a little 5'7" point guard, 6 of 12 from the floor, 27 minutes. He had 4 fouls. But outside of Likes, this team shot, I'm looking at the numbers real quick, they were 12 of 35 from the floor. Virginia had a big night from DeAndre Hunter, 22 points. He had 12 of Virginia's 14 points in a key stretch late in the second half. Another big game for Hunter. Kyle Guy, 5 of 9, 13 points. I mean, all these numbers, these are Virginia-like, just workman-like. Go out there and beat the other team on their home floor. You mentioned that Miami's projected as a 6th seed. I know that for fans out there who don't watch Virginia on a regular basis, they would say, oh, well, 59-50 against Miami, what does that mean? This is an impressive win for a Virginia team, as tired as they were. The last couple of games hadn't gone very well for this Virginia team. They played great defense for the most part in this game. They played great offense in this game. And really, I don't think, it never felt to me, Scott, this outcome was really ever in doubt. Hey, Scott, you there?
Yeah, Chris, I'm sorry. Sometimes you can get a feel for the way a game is going to unfold in the early minutes. Sometimes you can't, and you don't have to go back any further than Saturday to the home game against Virginia Tech. UVA bolts out 13-5 lead. The JPJ going berserk. Tech has to call a timeout. I mean, from all indications, this thing's going to be a rout. Well, it didn't turn out that way. tonight, I've got a better sense, even though we didn't bolt out to a big lead, it just looked like we had answers, and that we also attempted to get the ball inside, did that relatively well. Tonight my intuition early on was that we were going to be able to take care of business, and it worked out well. Of course, you made a comment that Miami, we withstood that second half rally. They actually pulled it within 3, looking at the run tracker. They had 3 straight layups. It was 29-19. Miami went on a 7-0 run to close within 29-26 at 14-21. And then Virginia answered, went back up 33-26. Miami got to within 4 once, but then it was pretty much the lead just kept getting larger as the game went on. This was more like the Virginia teams that we've seen play, and then I know there's a lot of naysayers out there that don't see a lot of pretty things about 59-50 games, but the team that had 59 points is the number 1 team in the nation.
Yeah, and you look at the number of possessions in this game. Actually, I'm kind of getting a feel. Usually, we do these podcasts. Scott and I do these podcasts right after I've written my recap, so I've kind of had a chance to digest. It's such a late night. We're already, as we're recording this, is 11:10 p.m. So we're trying to get this in so that you can listen to it before you go to bed, hopefully, and then I'll write my recap after. So I'm kind of still digesting the numbers, and Scott and I are both looking at StatBroadcast.com. This game had only 58 possessions, so Virginia scored 1.01 points per possession in this ballgame. And, looking at the numbers for Virginia, 45.8% from the field, 35.3% from 3, 2 of 8 from 3 in the second half, 4 of 9 in the first half. I made a joke on Twitter a couple different times. I really felt like you could see early in this game, Scott, that Virginia was really making an effort. We're not going to shoot threes. We shot 38 threes against Virginia Tech of the 61 shots from the field. There really felt like there was an emphasis. We're not going to shoot threes unless they're absolutely wide open and we have to, because as a result they have to. And, you see DeAndre Hunter, 3 of 6 from 3. You see Kyle Guy, 2 of 5 from 3. And Miami did what you would expect him to do. Scott, you and I both talked. I wrote a column about how there would be a blueprint from what Virginia Tech did to Virginia to slow them down. Virginia Tech with that packing the lane with their 2-3 matchup zone. Miami got down 13-5 just like Tech did the other night. Miami then, Jim Larinaga calls timeout, goes to a 2-3 matchup zone. But Virginia puts DeAndre Hunter in the middle of that zone like they've done against other teams, Duke and Syracuse. Hunter was only 3 of 10 from the field in the first half, but attacked that zone. And then he was 5 of 6 in the second half from the floor. And, the attack of the zone was so important in this game. And, 31 shots from 2-point range, 17 shots from 3-point range. That's the formula. I mean, maybe even a little bit better, but that's the formula for Virginia to have success. Attack the paint and have success there. And Hunter having a huge night for Virginia once again. Difference maker for Virginia in the middle of that zone.
Yeah, definitely. And coming off the bench, I'm looking at the same screen you are. Those maybe Tony listened to the fans. I doubt it, but look at the minutes.
Yeah,
that's more like we want to see him. 31 for Hall, 35 for Kyle Guy, 35 for Jerome, 32 for Wilkins. Salt right where we knew it would probably be 20. Hunter, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So he's getting starter minutes coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Johnson 10, Diakite 7. So that's the recipe. That's what Virginia. That's what it's going to have to look like, in my opinion, for Virginia to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament. You can't have 40. That first number in the minutes can't be a 4 if you're going to, expect these guys to perform at a high level on both ends of the floor.
Oh, yeah, and I was going to say the same thing, Scott, and we're both on the same mindset there. Hunter getting 30 minutes, I will have to verify this, but I'll say for right now, that's got to be a season high for Hunter in terms of minutes. And what he does on the floor in those 30 minutes, the 22 points, the 8 of 16 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, 3 of 3 from the free throw line. You look at Jack Salt, only 20 minutes on the floor, but 7 rebounds for Jack Salt tonight. 2 points. He made his dunk. Early in the game, he got a pass. He converted that dunk. He did what he needed to do. And Virginia owns the boards tonight against a bigger Miami team. I don't think we gave enough credit to Miami and their size, but Virginia actually out-rebounding Miami 32-24 in this ball game. And the key there is just keeping Miami off the offensive boards. Miami in this ball game, just the six offensive rebounds and the second chance points being limited for Miami. So what this did was, Miami got some points in the second half off their half-court offense. Chris Likes had a big game, his career high. He had 19 points. He was 3 of 7 from 3, 6 of 12 from the floor. But they weren't able to really string baskets together. And so even when a team like Miami, they had 16 in the first half, season low in the first half for Miami this season. They have 34 in the second half, but they're behind the 8 ball already. And so, that's what Virginia does to you. Even when you have a big second half like that, you have that ugly first half, and Virginia, of course, very efficient offensively. I mean, again, that's just the definition of what a good Virginia basketball game is. A 59-50 final where it really didn't feel in doubt because the defense did what it needed to do, the offense did what it needed to do, and a team that came in tired from Virginia just wins on a road against a tough Miami team. And a stranglehold on the ACC, 13-1 record now for Virginia with games against Georgia Tech, Pitt coming up next week down the stretch. I mean, you don't want to say anything's easy, but Virginia really in the driver's seat in the ACC at this stage.
This was, other than the Louisville game, this might have been the game that pretty much, no, I don't want to say that, but I'm going to say it. This might have been the game that pretty much clinches a regular season title, because you got to figure, we should win against Georgia Tech and that Pitt. They're going to be very winnable games. So we're only a win or so away from clinching it anyway. But now, so here's some interesting numbers, and we're both numbers guys, and I'm looking at, I don't want to give everyone our secrets, let them think that we keep these things the Jim Gordon way on an 11 by 14 yellow legal pad. But Kyle Guy, now this is kind of typical of maybe Tony made a concentrated effort to get Kyle out of the game early on. But so tonight Kyle played 35 minutes, scored 13 points, and here's the way his game started. He missed his first shot. He then hit his first three-point attempt, then hit a regular basket, put Virginia up 9-2, got 2 assists, then turned the ball over at 12-13 left in the first half, and then was taken out of the game at the 11:59 mark, was out for about 2 minutes, and then immediately came back in and nailed a three-pointer and got two consecutive assists. So, it looks like Tony made a little more of an effort to get some of these guys to minutes early on in the game.
I would agree, and as you were talking, Scott, I was listening in and also doing some math myself, because you're right. That's what the value we have is that we give you different perspective than maybe other people give you. And so looking at Hunter's 30 minutes, I looked at the 2 starters in the front court, Wilkins and Salt, 32 minutes for Wilkins and 20 minutes for Salt. That's 52 minutes, obviously. Diakite, unfortunately, he had a solid game in the 7 minutes he played. He had 4 fouls. But he plays at the 4 or 5. So when you add up Wilkins, Salt, and Diakite, that's 59 minutes. Now, we talked about how DeAndre Hunter played 30 minutes. That means he played 9 minutes in the backcourt. And I noted this out loud. We're both in our home offices as we're watching this game. My wife is in the next room from me. Fortunately for her, she gets insulation by being in the next room. But I yelled out at her, when DeAndre Hunter first came in the game, he played guard. He played 9 minutes at the 3 tonight for Virginia. And so, again, one thing we were all prescripting, at least a few of us, Scott and I and a couple other writers maybe, were prescripting was DeAndre Hunter needs more minutes at the guard. He came in first at the guard. There was a lineup with him and Diakite and Wilkins, which is an interesting lineup, along with Guy and Jerome. That might be Virginia's best lineup. That might be our death lineup when we get to NCAA tournament time. But giving Hunter minutes at the guard is something that that's going to extend. You talk about tonight, Nigel Johnson had 10 minutes off the bench. He was the only guard off the bench other than Hunter getting the 9 minutes at guard. So, that's how you can play Hall 31, Guy 35, Jerome 35. I almost want to see maybe Johnson get a couple more minutes at guard and maybe Hunter get a couple more minutes at guard. But this is a move very much in the right direction for Tony Bennett to use DeAndre Hunter, who is a guard. He's playing great in the post, but use him more at the guard to spell those guys back in the backcourt. And this is what Virginia is going to be. When we're talking about March, this is the most effective Virginia team in March, is this team we saw tonight.
Absolutely. And looking at this at the stats again, the minutes played, I heard an interesting terminology today on an NBA talk show where they were talking about a player off the bench. Even though he wasn't a starter, he consistently got starter minutes. Mm-hmm. And Hunter got starter minutes tonight, 30 minutes. And I'm looking at the breakdown of that 30 minutes. He didn't come into the game until 15:05 left in the first half. Uh-huh. So the next 35 minutes of game time, Hunter played 30 minutes. Yeah. 30 of those 35 minutes. And so he was effectively a starter. And it's kind of like Tony gets starter minutes out of maybe 6 players, or tonight he got them out of 6 players. Salt got 20 minutes. I guess that's probably close to starter minutes, half the game. But this to me is the way Virginia has to play. If you're going to play a 7-man rotation or an 8-man rotation, this is the way it's going to have to unfold as the season goes on, especially when we get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, if we can help Mamadi Diakite avoid the 4 fouls in 7 minutes, he played really effectively in that 7 minutes. But if he can give you 4 or 5 more minutes, maybe even up to 15 minutes in a game, what that does is spells Wilkins a little bit, because Wilkins played 32 tonight. If you can get Wilkins between 28 and 30, I think he's most effective energy-wise. Salt at 20, that's about his season average. So, yeah, if you can get a few more out of Diakite, this is the optimum rotation for Virginia. And so we saw Virginia. This is a good sign for Virginia fans. We saw Virginia tonight after as tired as they looked throughout that whole game against Virginia Tech. On the road at Miami, a really quality program, a probably a 5, 6, or 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. We saw Virginia on the road with tired legs play a great game with this lineup tonight. Again, this is how Virginia needs to look coming down the stretch. And so, yeah, we have a weekend off in ACC play. So, Virginia fans out there, we all get to enjoy the next few days, another week as the number 1 team in the country. Scott, you mentioned this. I don't know how long it's been. The last time Virginia fans in person, there were a few in the stands tonight down in Coral Gables. But for Virginia fans in person in Charlottesville to see a number 1 basketball team play, we get that opportunity coming up 8 days from now on Wednesday night, February 21st, for Georgia Tech coming into town. And we get to see a number 1 Virginia team playing in JPJ. That will be a special night, I'm sure, for us and our fans as well.
Yeah, be interesting to see what how the secondary ticket market responded tonight. Now that Virginia is guaranteed playing Wednesday night against Georgia Tech as the number 1 seed, number 1 team in the nation, to see how that ticket market responded as far as the value of the tickets, how much they increased. I think I'll have to take a peek at that before I go to bed tonight. But also thinking back, because unfortunately I was old enough. I wasn't 10 the last time we did. You just cannot resist rubbing that in my face.
I try to be. I do my best. Yeah.
Old boy. And I was old enough to buy beer then. Which, by the way, you didn't have to be but 18 back in those days. But we lost to Chaminade, and I'm not sure. Memory's just not that good who we played next. So obviously losing to Chaminade, we weren't going to retain number 1 ranking. I don't know if we came back home or not to play or not. So it'd be interesting to see when the last time we played at home as the number 1 ranked team in the nation.
That's a great point. We'll have to look that up. And I'll say this:
maybe we can give that information
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I mean, okay, so yeah, it's great that we have the weekend off. We can go enjoy the weekend and be number one and all that stuff. Go buy our T-shirts, and I'm going to go do that. Mincer's sold out twice already of their number one T-shirts, so I hope they get another run of those. But that said, okay, yeah, it's great. It's great having a weekend off. But I'm going to be and I'm sure you are, too, Scott, too, stir crazy as heck going into these next few days because we're number one, but we don't play for 8 days. It's going to be a long 8 days till we play again. This is so weird this time of season. I know it's great for the team. They need their legs. They need their rest. But for us fans, it's going to be a long 8 days till we play again, man.
Well, it is. And basketball junkies like us, we know we're not going to be able to stay away from the TV. There's some interesting games. Tomorrow night, it's going to be interesting to see, does Tech build upon that upset Saturday night in JPJ and go even further and enhancing their resume and maybe getting an at-large bid by going to Cameron and winning? Or does Tech go down there and lay an egg and lose, and all the good that they did Saturday night in JPJ is gone away? Duke's got some games. It'll be interesting to see how Clemson can respond. There's still things that are happening in the ACC that's going to be pertinent to us, but it's nice to just kind of step back and watch these other teams battle each other out. Well, I think everybody in the conference probably had that luxury of that 8-day window of being off, except us. We're probably the last team, or nearly the last team, to have that break.
I'll tell you what, too, Scott, since you mentioned the Virginia Tech Duke game, I tweeted this during the Virginia-Miami game tonight, and I'm sure my wife hates me for having done so, but I said Virginia Tech playing Duke tomorrow night. That's the one night of the year I root for Virginia Tech, and then I actually questioned it. Do I root for Duke? I don't know, man. At this point in a podcast late this night, Virginia fans are listening. I don't know who I root for in that game, or just root for both teams to somehow lose. But that's a tough one. I mean, who do you root for, Virginia Tech or Duke? And I think I know your answer, Scott, because I don't know. Maybe I don't know your answer. I know that you have strong feelings both ways.
I think I would like. I don't think it really matters. Maybe an 11 overtime game. I might have said, because I just don't like Duke that much. Say I would be okay with the Hokies. I had an interesting little conversation with a Tech fan, and they were, and I don't know what the message boards are like, because I haven't really been on the message boards since we lost Saturday night. I did not want to go on them, but I had someone talking about how he could not believe that Virginia was voted number one in the nation, despite losing to Tech. And I thought, you're disrespecting your own team.
Uh-huh.
Because to me, the voters, by putting Virginia number one, were kind of saying, hey, there's no shame to losing to a very solid Virginia Tech team.
Yeah. Yeah.
As opposed to, oh my gosh, they lost to Virginia Tech. Well, we'll drop them out of the top 25. So to me, if you're a Tech fan, that would make me feel great that the voters felt strong enough about UVA to elevate them to number one, despite losing to Tech. Because to me, it seems like the voters were almost, hey, Tech's been playing good ball. It's a state rival. Tech's a solid team. Stuff like that happens. Virginia still, the body of work speaks for itself. We're still going to vote number one. So based on that little conversation, I'm going to pull for Duke tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, and we're going to test how many people listen to us 25 minutes almost into a podcast late at night on a Tuesday night. I feel like I'm a traitor to my nation here, because I always say that if Duke was playing Al Qaeda, I'd root for Al Qaeda. I can't see rooting for Virginia Tech in this one. It's gonna hurt me tomorrow night. My innards are already hurting thinking this, but I can't see Tech beating both Virginia and Duke. I cannot. I do not want to think about Virginia Tech fans crying about that for the next how many ever days, years, months, whatever. God, I hate myself for saying this out loud. Go Duke. Go Duke. Go Duke.
Well, you know what? I think in this particular instance, your sins will be forgiven. That's almost a no-win situation. But you know, as I said, had there been a little more humbleness on this particular Tech fans in his tone of his voice, I probably would have maybe said I don't care who wins that game. But now I probably would be pulling for Duke because they almost disrespected Virginia by questioning why the voters would put UVA number one after having lost to Tech.
And I hope it's a 30-point game at halftime and that the buses are already warmed up. Yeah, and I'm saying this, fans who are listening, if you haven't listened, much lately or whatever, you don't remember this. My wife's a Virginia Tech grad. She doesn't really. I don't think she follows Tech too closely. She knows that Papa's happy if Virginia wins. So that said, yeah, God, I hate myself for saying this out loud again. I've my mouth almost is about ready to like curl in recoil. Go Duke, go Duke, go Duke. So, but that's the fun part of this tonight, Scott. Is Virginia wins tonight as a number one team in the country. There's no games between now and next Wednesday. We're number one again next week. That's already a given, and we can just watch the rest of the ACC eviscerate itself the next few days. So that's fun. I mean, I'm kind of looking forward to this weekend with no pressure. That's the only good thing about this. I will miss not having a game. There's no pressure this weekend. We can just sit back and let them kill each other.
Exactly. And my advice to you after that, just go take a hot shower and go to bed.
There we go. Well, luckily for me, I've got a guest bedroom. So, so that's the breakdown for tonight, plus breaking down the rest of the weekend. Virginia wins 59-50 at Miami. Big win for Virginia on the road. Another road win for this Virginia basketball team. For Scott German, I'm Chris Graham signing off. Wah-hoo-wah.